by two marauders, Nikto.
You must remember those words.
Gordon's alive.
You know what the Turing test is?
I know Kung Fu.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Stories Out of Time and Space Patreon special. As always, we're going to be following through episodes that are linked, thematically at least, with the main show. I'm your regular host, Scott Weatherly, and as always, I'm joined by Julian Darius. Julian, how are you doing? You okay?
I'm on my way to Las Vegas and
Yeah.
still alive. How are you?
I'm kind of lost in Las Vegas, and not sure whether I like this film or not, is how I feel. But we are going to talk about it. We are talking about 1998's Six String Samurai. In 1957, the bomb is dropped. The nuclear bomb is dropped, and Russia takes over what is left of America, leaving a small alcove in Nevada known as Las Vegas. The king of Las Vegas is Elvis Presley. He survives for 40 years, and on his death, new people start to emerge to claim the throne of Las Vegas. One such person is Buddy, a Buddy Holly lookalike samurai carrying a guitar, walking across the wasteland, who is joined by a small kid who takes on different enemies and groups on his quest to reach Las Vegas, and is being pursued by Death and his cohorts. Literal death, I think. So we'll go from there. Stars Jeffrey Falcon, action and martial arts star from from Hong Kong cinema, and really that's about it of anyone you've ever heard of. But it has a banging soundtrack that really carried me through. So what are your initial thoughts on Six String Samurai?
Yeah, this one's a hard one to talk about. It's sort of like a music video, like it's a collection of scenes.
Yeah.
Some of them sort of poorly edited, some of them impressive, many of them confusing in one way or another, to its detriment. But then alternatively featuring really cool elements and some cool shots and some cool music and cool ideas. And, you sort of, you want to like it. I mean, but you want to like it and you want this to be another like Dusk Till Dawn, sort of like clearly there's a lot of Tarantino influence. But it's just a little too low budget, a little too confusing. Again, filled with great ideas, but I'm even you recounting this setup, you never see any of this, right?
No.
This is all given to you in a crawl, and you never see Las Vegas, you never see the king, you never really even see an Elvis impersonator. All these people are kind of going to Las Vegas to become the new king, yet why are they all traveling by the same sort of route? I mean, is there nobody in Las Vegas who's vying for control? I mean, I like the usage of the radio, as a narrator. But yeah, it's a little its confusion undermines its cool ideas, in my estimation. What are your thoughts, Scott?
No, I think it's an interesting one because whilst watching it, I really enjoyed it in the sense that I was like, oh, that's a cool idea. It's a cool shot. I liked it, but it didn't really amount to much in that, like, it tries to reach like an impactful or an emotional ending, but like it doesn't work in that way. So when I come out the end of it, I'm like, as you said, some of the visuals were kind of cool, some of the jokes are weird, but they're very inconsistent. Like the tone of this is so all over the place that I'm not entirely sure. Like, it's supposed to be a comedy, but I don't. It's not as funny as I think it thinks it is. But then it has like some of the sort of moments when it's sort of playing for like the closest comparison for me, I would say, is you said you're looking for something like From Dusk Till Dawn or something like that. I'm thinking this is like the 90s Buckaroo Banzai,
Mm.
where it's like, oh, it's weird and it's good because it's weird. And I like Buckaroo Banzai, but this one I'm kind of like riding on that similar. I'm enjoying the weirdness, but where I can sort of like I seem to get invested more in Buckaroo Banzai. Like I struggle to really invest in this as a film overall. Um, yeah, that it's just an oddity, is what it is.
It is an oddity. And the Buckaroo Banzai comparison is really fascinating. I definitely see what you're talking about. I think compared to Buckaroo Banzai, this is really about a loner, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a lone wolf and cub scenario, right? He's
Yep.
got his child follower on. Um, but he's sort of not really likable. And to the extent that he really is a good guy, he still doesn't speak much. He's kind of gruff. I mean, the kid doesn't speak much. I mean, I'm all for that, but it kind of doesn't give you a lot of ins.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think compared to Buckaroo Banzai, like even if I'm confused by elements of Buckaroo Banzai, I don't understand the world of Buckaroo Banzai, which I don't. I don't understand shot to shot what's happening in a
Yeah.
lot of this movie.
Can I, can
And
I, can I say you sort of like because I feel the same. Like there were scenes I literally had to like flash back, like I'm going backwards a couple of seconds because I'm like I don't know what I've just seen. This film won an award or was put forward for an award for its editing, and I'm like, this is some of the choppiest and some of the worst editing choices. Like the fight scenes are so because again, I double checked. Jeffrey Falcon appears in several films I've seen. I was like, okay, I don't know him, but he's appeared in some of the Hong Kong action films I've seen. And he's done stuff. But in this, like, so he's a martial artist. This guy can do the things that are being shown on screen. But the way it's edited is almost like they're trying to hide the fact that he can't do those things.
yes. No, I agree. I agree with that. When the movie starts, first of all, it starts in a weird aspect ratio, which
Yes.
apparently is intended to be a tribute to like VHS Hong Kong movies or
Mm-hmm.
something. It's like, okay, that's clever, but it makes me think like, I mean, I literally went through and thought, can I change this? Can I fix this? I thought, well, the movie's playing in the wrong aspect ratio. Um, yeah, so that might have been sort of a little end of Sopranos moment in my life where I'm sort
Mm.
of like, yeah, something's wrong with my TV. Um, but then, I initially thought, oh wow, they're really hiding the fact this guy can't do the swordsmanship and can't do the moves.
Yes.
Because it's all this kind of like close up, like kind of like bad Chris Nolan fighting, where it's all
Mm-hmm.
like, quick cut,
The Born
extreme
Identity
close up
stuff,
stuff.
like that thing of making um Jason Bourne look faster and everything than he actually is, or Taken when they did it with Liam Neeson. Yeah.
You mean Liam Neeson is not a master martial artist? I mean,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
wasn't in
Don't
all
be
those Jackie
fooled.
Chan movies.
That's it. That's it. Don't be fooled. That's the masters. That's the magic of Hollywood. That is.
Yeah. So I mean, I sort of thought, oh, they're really hiding the fact that he can't do it. But then in later shots where they sort of pull back a little, or I think, oh no, he's really good. He's
Mm.
quite capable of doing this, um, and then I thought, yeah, this is a deliberate choice. I mean, did you watch Taken and thought
Yeah.
that's what the fight scene should look like? I don't know. It's very strange. And then it's enhanced by the fact that it feels like most of this movie was shot on a 1-to-1, shooting ratio of like there are shots where it's like, oh, right, that's you needed a reshoot there. It just isn't quite right
Mm-hmm.
and just didn't have the time. Um,
No.
like the main character looks cool, but then there are times where he just looks sloppy or not cool. And there'll be shots where I'm like, oh, that's a really impressive shot of him tumbling down a cliffside or something, you know. And then there'll be another shot where I'll think, yeah, that needed a reshoot, you know.
Yes.
And it doesn't help that like the audio is kind of out of sync. Again, that might be like
The
an
copy that we
homage to,
watched. No,
yeah,
I don't know if it is, or because we should say, just to highlight, this isn't readily available. Like, we had to search that. I found that it's available on YouTube, and the version. I think, do you watch the version from the link I
yeah,
sent?
yeah, I did.
So that's an early DVD transfer from a VHS copy. So it is not a good copy of the film. So I took that as, I was like, oh, when it's out of sync, I was like, that just, I'm hoping that's like a bad version of this film. Otherwise, it's just crap.
The irony is there are clips on YouTube that are like 4K clips, and
Mm.
they look phenomenal.
Mm.
Like, you know, I'm such a, you know, I fetishize that crisp, you know, modern look so much.
But this could look cool because, like you say, some of the I've only seen. I'm going to hunt those down because there are certain shots in this, as you said. I'd think, like, if this is cleaned up, this would look really good. So that might help with my opinion. But sorry, carry on.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that the other thing is that main actor, he doesn't have charisma. Like, he has the martial art chops despite the, you know, the cutting, but he doesn't have any charisma. Like, he's supposed to be such a badass, right? And that sort of like Clint Eastwood, you know, model. But, you know, I mean, A, that's a little cliche these days, but B, you know, you never really feel that he's like, he doesn't have the presence of somebody who would just stroll into combat. And he looks cool doing it, at least the majority of the time. But, you know, but then, you know, something's flung in the, I mean, there are whole sequences where I don't really understand what's happening. I mean, like, they're chased for miles, but yet the car never catches up with them. I mean,
Well, this is the tonal thing that I was really struggling with from the very beginning. I was trying to sort of like, there have been films, you know, let's lean into some of the films we've watched before. There's the most recent one, for the patron at least. Hell Comes to Frogtown.
mhm.
It has, you know, it starts with that little bit at the beginning, and, you know, we said it had like the really cool statue of the Statue of Liberty, and there's a few jokes, and you go like, oh, this also thinks it's funnier than it is. Like, you know, this is, but it's trying. Like, you get what this is, but again, we even said then it was never entirely clear if it was supposed to be like, how straight is the action supposed to be, and how much of a comedy is it supposed to be. Like, it was always kind of wavering on that line. But because you have someone like Roddy Piper, who is charismatic and can carry that sort of thing off, it kind of works. And then you said, like, you know, but then when they get to Frogtown, you realize, oh, this is ridiculous. And they you know, we said that we wish they'd leaned into it even more, or we wanted that to be even more ridiculous. That was the hope. This is almost at the other end of the spectrum, where you come into it, as you say, there's a changing aspect ratio. One of the first things you come across is a band. I think that they might be the Red Elvises, playing in immaculate suits in the middle of the desert, sort of in these ruins, and they're playing rockabilly songs. It's all cool. Like, I'm kind of digging it. But then all of a sudden these guys turn up and they're bowling. There's a bowling team with 10-pin bowlings with knives in, and there's a fight. And then they get chased out. Then there's a truck with that sort of out of Mad Max with crazy people on it, and it's firing gobstoppers at our hero and the kid as they're trying to get away.
Who's eating them?
But then they're eating them, and it's still playing this, like, constantly plays this rockabilly music throughout. Like, we get the soundtrack's cool, but, like, again, I'm like, I don't know. But they're driving so slowly that the people off the truck are running up to the car, and then sort of it's so weird. But I'm like, is this supposed to be a comedy? Like, it's surrealist, isn't it? Like, this is a surrealist film, but the whole thing is like a fever dream. That's the only way I could picture it. Like,
It does feel like that, doesn't it? I mean,
Mm.
and I'm with you about those early scenes where it's like, I mean, it's sort of going for a, yeah, I mean, a sort of like cool, weird Tarantino cross with David Lynch or something like, vibe. And those ideas of like I love the ideas of like the bowling pins with knives
Yeah.
inside. I mean, like that's something I could see in like, Kill Bill or something. Like I love the
Mm.
idea. It's sort of something that you don't want to lean in and base your whole movie on, but it's here briefly, it's a great bit. But the problem is then you go to these weird cuts of the fighting where, that are super close-ups. You're not really sure what the setting is. There's this whole group of you know, people watching who's a whole separate group you've got to keep in your mind. And I don't understand anybody's motivation except they like to fight. I mean, like those lines in Kill Bill that are like, you're on our territory, so therefore we have to kill you.
Mm.
That's like a million times more
Yeah.
deep characters than anyone in this movie.
Well, the plot into this, I mean, this is that thing you say about good ideas. There were some really cool ideas and some really cool visuals as well. But like this isn't, Jeffrey Falcon, who is obviously the main character playing Buddy. He's experienced of Hong Kong cinema. All right, I checked. He's appeared in films with like Cynthia Rothrock and Michelle Yeoh and Chow Yun Fat. Like he's done. He's never a main player, but he's been in those films. Right. One of the defining characteristics of those Hong Kong cinema things is they pull back to let the people do the shit they can do. Like that's kind of important. Is like you go, oh, those people can do that martial arts stuff. They can do the high kicks and the quick punches and all the gymnastics that goes with it. That's important that you believe that. Just to have it so close in all the time and to an almost claustrophobic level is bizarre to me throughout this film. Like it's so off-putting at times that it's so confusing. Um, but the other thing is, but on the other side, they say there were some really cool choices. The plot of this film is Buddy is heading towards Las Vegas to become the new king. He seems to assume that he is just going to be crowned the new king. I don't know why. There's this thing around his guitar. He's carrying this guitar that seems to have importance. Don't know why. But he is being pursued by Death and three other like
Minions
wasteland,
of Death.
yeah, wasteland
Goth.
musician people. But one of the great things about Death, the way they have filmed this is like the person who plays Death is blacked out. You never see their face. It's just
Mhm.
black, and it's brilliant. Like you don't see the outline of a face. You never see it. It's just shadow black, and I loved it. And then at the end, there's a moment when they're fighting, and just as the arm raises up, it like goes past the face, and you reveal the skull beneath, just for a second. And I was
Looks
like,
amazing.
looks brilliant. I was like,
Yeah.
that's such a cool idea. Still don't know why Death is following Buddy for any of this film.
No, right. No, I agree with you completely. Like I think there are a couple times where you see that face and it's really brief and it looks phenomenal.
Yeah.
But then, he does seem to be Death. I
Mm.
mean, but also there's like at least Death's minion is menacing the radio show because the
Yeah.
radio show, which I think is broadcasting out of Las Vegas, has like Death in the studio and
Mm.
it's like so does everyone know this is really Death? Like, are we in some kind of supernatural universe? I mean, and then Death is killed by the kid at the end with water, and it doesn't say I'm melting, so you're like, oh, I guess that was really Death. I guess,
Yeah.
and, you know, killed through supernatural means. I
But there's
mean,
like there's
I
a
don't understand.
well, the only time that any kind of justification or sort of like relevance is the music. So
Yeah.
Buddy is a Buddy Holly um lookalike. Like, he's wearing the Buddy. This is the other problem, I will say. And I want to be careful with no, let's be clear. The suit looks cool. Fine. He's wearing a black suit, white shirt, black tie. There's very Reservoir Dogs. The problem is the glasses. It is the 50s heavy framed thick Buddy Holly glasses. Unfortunately, because they are also broken and they're made to look dusty, he just kind of looks. It takes away from the cool. Do you know what I mean? Like they need. He doesn't look
I
cool enough.
disagree.
Okay,
I
I still
love
think
the
he looks.
glasses. I love those glasses.
Okay.
And I'm kind of like I watch them every shot to see
Mm,
like the cracks and like how they're all dinged up and stuff. I love the glasses. I'm a
mm.
huge fan of,
Okay.
those
Okay.
those glasses anyway. Um yeah, so for me that works. And for me, I mean, I'm not saying that they're the coolest choice,
Mm.
but I mean,
It's defining, though. I mean, it could
it
be.
is.
Yeah. Okay. I
And
agree with
it's
that.
got like the tape on the
Yes.
corner and everything, like, and I find myself kind of staring at that suit and at the glasses, looking for the dust and the cracks and stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, the suit is torn up, and I mean, his shirt is like, light brown,
Yeah. Yeah.
basically, except for the rim with buttons running down the middle. I mean, all of that stuff really works for me.
Mm.
There are shots where it doesn't. There are shots where I just think like this is not well composed, or it's
Yeah.
hard to see, or it's oversaturated or something. And I just think that needs another take. Um, but for the most part, I mean, I find that stuff works. But but the guitar doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Like at one point, he uses it as a weapon, despite hits those guys when they catch up with him, and I'm like, yeah, you're gonna damage that guitar that's supposedly so precious. Um, the I don't know, I mean, I don't know why you sort of see him playing a couple times, and again, like the first time, it seems like, oh, this is a quick cut, like he's not really playing this, and the second time, I'm like, oh, I'm a little more convinced now.
Mm.
But this movie doesn't seem interested in explaining why does he have this guitar? What is he, there is this kind of like metaphor of like each group has a different kind of music, which I
Well,
kind of like, right?
that's the bit.
Like,
Yeah, exactly. That was
yeah,
the bit I was. That's yeah, and that's the bit I do like. Like, meet the communists. The bowlers even have a kind of different thing. Death introduces heavy metal. That was the thing I was gonna say. There. There's like almost like like he has to play against Death's minion at the end, and there's a kind of like a guitar duel, which was kind of cool. And I was like, all
yeah,
right, I'm in for this. This is what I'm saying. There's some really cool stuff in this, and I actually really like the
for
ending of this
sure.
film. But like, yeah, but it's kind of hampered continually by like not being followed up with anything or being supported by anything. So it's kind of like an instance of like going, this is really cool, this moment's ace, and then the next scene, like this next instance is crap, or like is badly edited or badly shot, or I don't even know what it means. Like, why am I looking at this? It's so inconsistent that it really is hard to like this film. I kind of do,
Hmm.
and I want to see it. I'd love to see a 4K cleaned up version of this, but I also want. It's one of those films I'm desperate to be like. I want this to be like. I've seen this as the first draft. I now want to see this done with. I mean, this was This cost $1 million to make. This had $1 million budget. In '98, so it is low budget. Um, but I kind of want this to be given like not masses. This doesn't need like
Right.
200 million. I don't need this. Doesn't need Marvel money or anything like that. 10 million, or
Yep.
even maybe a little more, say 15 million max. Like, go ahead, go make something cool. Like, but make the story more coherent.
Yeah, and make those scenes really work. Like there's a lot
Mm,
of really aggressive editing choices here, whether it's the aspect ratio or, I assume the dubbing, fake dubbing stuff. I
yeah,
mean, there's a lot here that, I mean, this is a gonzo crazy
yeah,
allegorical story that's got a lot going on, a lot of cool stuff. It needs a little bit of a polish, but it also
mm,
just needs those sequences to work better. And there's some sequences that work pretty well, and
hmm,
then but still look a little cheap, and I'm fine with those. And then there are others where it's like, oh, this is aggressive as hell, like I really admire what you're doing, but like, do you not know this isn't working and you could have edited this better?
yeah.
um yeah, But I'm with you. Like, this is exactly the kind of movie that you think like, oh no, this needs that $10 million,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
this is the proof of concept.
yes, exactly that. I mean, I would be happy if this did like well, this is a sort of a weird musical because there's moments when the sort of the music is diegetic and it's part of the film, and there's others where it's just in the soundtrack. But again, like they'll meet characters, like that whole opening scene where they're just at the ruins and there's a rockabilly band playing is ace. Like I really like that. I'm like, this is weird, and I'm kind of into it, and I like you said, the bowling bit, like and some of the dialogue in this is actually some of it's dreadful. Like some of it is some of the
Yeah.
worst dialogue I've ever heard. But some of it's actually kind of good. Like there's one moment when Death is saying, like, I sent you to kill the guy and I end up with four dead bald guys. And that's like, there's stuff like that. Or later on, someone says, if I was you, he says, if you were me, you'd be good looking. I was like,
Hmm.
that's a cool line. I like it. There's stuff like that really works.
Not
There's,
necessarily delivered that well,
no,
but not a
but
bad line. Yeah.
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 Again, like there's a moment where the MTV felt like a massive impact on this. Like this felt like almost watching like a Beavis and Butthead kind of interlude kind of thing.
Or like
Also,
live action, Eon Flux kind of like just
yeah,
throw it out there,
yeah. I mean, there's a
be
scene where
different.
they come across they've stolen a car and they come across a house and there's a family in it. And the guy comes out and he sort of starts talking to him like he knows him. He's like, I know, oh, you're still paying off that Plymouth, and they're still like living like that 1950s idealized life, and they go in, the house is ruined, and there's all this, and the wife or the mother keeps saying, do you want some candy? Do you want some candy? Put some meat on your bones, and they sort of offering up for the kid, and they sort of stay, and then he's like, oh, cool, you can adopt the kid. Like he keeps trying to palm the kid off on to other
I like
people.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. I
It's a
mean,
little confusing, but
yeah.
I love the idea of like,
Well, the idea is obviously you said like Lone Wolf and Cub, isn't it? Like eventually he comes round to like the end of the film, he's willing to sacrifice himself to save the kid. Like it's not that clear in the film. Like it just sort of
mhm.
happens at the end, but it's clear that's what they want to get across. But I do
When the
like
bad guys say he's got a weakness,
yes,
which is
exactly.
basically like he cares about the kid no matter
Yeah.
what he's saying. Yeah.
And he starts to save the kid more and more towards the end, but it's still a little confused. But I kind of like the moment he's gone that this family try to eat the kid. And
Yeah.
like the mum's got like a meat fork and stuff like that, and he's only saved because another group of people, the wind people, turn up. But there's a moment when they hear something and it's kind of sped up, and they all sort of rush to the window, and it looks like oh they've cranked this up, but it looks weird, and it never happens again. Like that speeding up of the film, that cartooniness, never happens again in the film. It's not something that's used again. So, but there's lots of slow mo in the film. I don't know. It's amateurish in that way. I think that's the
Yeah.
problem. It's kind of like, well, what have we got in the special or the visual effects package that we bought?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I'll give it credit for is like it's shooting. It's really it's shooting for the moon. It's
Oh,
really
yeah,
aggressive. I
full
mean,
swings.
I mean, this is some of this is stuff that like as a young man who thought about making movies, I'd be like, right, why don't we do more of this? Why don't we do more of that? These are all things you can do with cinema. You can, speed things up, you can slow them down, you can distort the sound, the video in all kinds of ways. Why don't we play around with this? Why are we doing these medium shots, all the time? And to its credit, I mean, this is doing all those things.
Mm.
It's just not doing them particularly well. um, and I really want to admire it, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I'm not so sure how much I liked that.
Hmm.
It does come off as kind of amateurish in places.
Yes, it does, but it's
But great ideas. I mean,
great
like you're talking about the
ideas.
cannibalism. It's just like I want that like weird delicatessen moment, right? I mean, like
Yes.
I want those like Tarantino is so good at putting together audio visual along with, I mean, and there are moments in this that are
Mm.
really working at that level. I mean, you mentioned like the soundtrack. I think it gets a little repetitive. I sort of feel like I want Shingon, that Tarantino has used multiple times.
Mm.
I'm like, yeah, where'd you find these guys? A little bit of that, but there are some sort of like silhouettes of him, on those dunes that just
Yeah.
look like
When
amazing.
he's on the bike, there's some really
Oh
great
yeah,
shots.
with the kid kind of hanging
Yeah.
on. I mean, there's some great stuff in here.
Yeah.
It's just mixed in with a bunch of like, well, that's a noble idea, but it doesn't quite come off. I mean, I think that's most of it, along with some stuff that's kind of like cringeworthy, or just confusing. I mean, there are a lot of shots, my pet peeve of like, um, the cut does not fix everything.
Yeah.
There are lots of shots where like there's a shot even in the ruins where somebody throws something at him and he like deflects it, but he doesn't deflect it in a particularly graceful martial artist way. And it lands in somebody's
It hits
then
someone
the
in the
next shot
car.
is it hits
Yeah.
the passenger in the car, and you're like, is that the same? I guess that's the same scene. Like just because it's another shot, you juxtapose them is not enough to like. Where
Well, it
is that
doesn't.
car?
We should say you say he deflects it. No, he doesn't. Because I actually watched it. I went back and watched the scene because it figures exactly what you've just said. Because it hits somebody in the car as if he sort of like deflects it with his knife, with the sword. He doesn't. It actually hits him, and they cut it, so he misses.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's a complete balls up, and they obviously didn't want to shoot it again for whatever. Maybe the best take they had. I don't know, but yeah, no, there's scenes like that that just baffling throughout. Um, the scene, for example, I know some of these are sort of, even big films make these bloopers and have these things, but at the end of the film, for example, like he gets shot with a bunch of arrows, right?
Mhm.
You know, um,
The arrows throughout are an issue, right? Like sometimes they look great, but
yeah,
sometimes it's like that looks wobbly in
someone's
the
thrown that.
air.
Yeah, someone's
Yeah.
thrown that. That's not been fired by a bow and arrow, but he has like a bunch of arrows sticking in his back. But it's quite clear that he's clearly wearing something under his coat that they're all stuck to because it's about 4 inches thick.
Yeah.
And he looks like a hunchback all of a sudden. You're like, I was like, oh, is that a bad shot? Oh no, he has something really badly sort of situated under his jacket for these arrows, and it just looks really bad. And you're like, okay, like, this is the kind of thing where you turn up on set, you try it, and go, that's not working. We need to try something else. But if you've
But you
only
have
got
to
a
have the
million
time
dollars,
and the money to
exactly, yeah, and that's where I think the budget.
ship.
You feel the budget, and you're going like, okay, this is where you bring Sean Bean in and just shoot him for real. That's what of a no,
Well,
then,
the
yeah,
same thing's true of those volleys of arrows,
yeah,
where for a while he's deflecting everyone kind of Luke Skywalker style with a lightsaber, except, with his sword. And it kind of works, I mean, I'm not convinced of all those arrows, but then he turns his back and goes to the kid, and this is when he's eventually, shot with those arrows.
mm,
But in the meantime, you see volley after volley of arrows where it's like, can you not shoot straight? What are we supposed to be thinking about this? Like, uh, yeah, I mean, that's where it feels very sort of like this is the rough cut of Star Wars. This
yes,
is proof of concept.
yeah,
This needs a lot of work.
exactly, yeah. But again, like yeah, this is akin to me again to that kind of Hell Comes Frogtown in that similar way, where I think we've said like, oh, I'll take these and I'll remake it and I'll do this and this. But there's some good ideas. There are things I think are good ideas in the moment, and then when I reflect on them, I'm like, no, that doesn't work. Um, for example, he comes across one of the gangs he comes across is a bunch of communists, a bunch of Russians, and they've all
Yeah,
got
it's
AK-47.
strange.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
but aren't you supposed to have taken over the country? Like you're the ruling thing. Like I don't get this bit. And then they sort of there's a joke where he takes on a bunch of the Russians and he kills them all with his samurai. And again, this is one of the bits actually looks kind of good. There's some interesting scenes played out. And then one of them turns to the guy who's like the general or whatever and says, "Why don't we just shoot him?" And he says, "Well, we haven't had any bullets." You say, "Shush, we don't. We haven't had any bullets since 1957, 40
I
years
like that.
before." And yeah, well, all right, you go, fine. That's funny, right? Because you're acknowledging you've got guns, but you're not using them. And there's a part of me going, So in 40 years, you've never found a way of either remaking bullets or doing something, or just choosing other weapons. Like, this is 40 years. This isn't like, oh, this has just happened. This is 4 decades later. They're still holding on to those AK-47s and stuff that they know they haven't got any bullets for.
Yeah.
That's where I'm like,
It's
that's a funny joke if it was like a year. If it's 4 decades, I'm like, yeah, you're calling out why they're not just shooting him, but you're also calling out the fact that this person should know that. That's why they're asking, because it's been 4 decades that they haven't had bullets.
and why are you brandishing AKs as if they're, because everybody knows they're effectively just clubs.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Yeah, so back to the premise, like, so communists have conquered the Russians have conquered the United States somehow. And the nuclear attacks happened like in the 50s.
Yes, 1957.
So this is all like retro-futuristic,
Mhm. This is
I
1997. This is taking
that's
place
got
at.
to be one of the key selling points
Mhm.
of the movie, right? It's like time is stopped at this certain point of American culture. That's why they still have the same cars and,
Yeah,
whatever else. But it seems like there's not much done with that, right? And maybe like that's such a cool idea,
it
right?
is.
Like, but it's except for him looking like Buddy Holly and references to the king and talking about some old cars and stuff. I don't really, get a sense of it. And maybe that just needs more of a bigger budget. I
You
mean, because like Las
need
Vegas looks nothing like Las
no.
Vegas. I mean, it looks like industrial, like some Mad Max wasteland,
Yes.
factory town. It looks more like from when How Comes to Frogtown or something. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, this feels more like, if you're going to do this, this kind of feels like what Fallout does. The game
hmm
and in the TV show. This idea of the bombs dropped and everyone got stuck in this sort of retro future 50s thing, and so everything has that um you know that 50s futuristic 50s look.
hmm
And but when you go out into the world, like, you come across those 50s Americana, like the big diner or sort of the cars or the bits and pieces. And this kind of needs that, doesn't it? Like, this needs to be, oh, the world stopped in 1957, so these things never existed. So what we ended up with is, yeah, this version of America that is, or the wastelands of America that has rooted itself in, like, part cowboy, part Wild West, part 50s. You know what I mean? So you're gonna have you would really root yourself in that and have that as be like a nostalgia thing. I don't know. Yeah, it feels throwaway in and of itself.
Yeah,
Um,
the core concept is not played out in a way that, I mean, you could really almost forget it.
mm,
I found myself having to remember, like, especially at that line, I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad you explained why you're not using the guns. But they say, like, we haven't had any bullets since like 57, and I'm like, oh yeah, right.
yeah.
This is not the future. And I mean, they have the same, when the boy finally speaks and he, has this discussion about cars and their years. And it's like, right, I'm constantly having to remind myself of the central premise of
Hmm.
retrofuturism, which I love retrofuturism.
Mm.
Like, why am I having to remind myself of that? And that should be so woven into, I mean, do we see this as like a proto Fallout movie before the TV series on
Oh
Amazon
yes,
that did super well? This is like kind of taking. They even have a town called Fallout.
I definitely think this. We talked about, one of the big influences on Fallout was A Boy and His Dog. I kind of think this is in there as well. Six String Samurai feels like this is in the mix as well. Um,
Well, it needs
some
more
degree.
cannibalism,
It
you know.
does, yeah. But going to that town Fallout, like, again, one of the things I noticed with the budget, there are so well, I don't think there are any sets. Everything is natural.
Yeah.
I don't think anything's actually built. Even when they get to Fallout Town, it's, or whatever it's called, it feels like they've gone, this'll do. We shall do some set dressing. We're not building a set. And he basically, at one point, like, again, this character thing, whatever the character of Buddy is, he's so wooden as a sort of a thing. He's trying to be kind of cool. And it says this is supposed to be a satire. And I'm like, all right, cool. But it doesn't work as a satire because I think you're trying to sort of be a satire of the, as you said, that sort of like, Lone Wolf and Cub, the man with no name. He's so rigid, or he's so sort of thing that he's wooden. So that when the hooker is trying to strip him, he just lies there like a board, and she struggles to take his trousers off. And I'm like, yeah, I don't get this. Like, I don't understand this bit
What are we
at
supposed
all.
to think about it?
Yeah, like
Like,
what
is
is
he
it?
not interested in sex? I mean,
I don't understand what this scene is trying to ape or satirize or make fun of. Like, I don't get it. Which, if
I think
I'm,
that whole Fallout sequence is confusing to me.
Mm.
Like, I mean, he's being undressed by the hooker, but he's not doing anything on this bed in this rather small room, as you say, obviously just
yeah,
repurposed, right? And then, he hears the kid in trouble, he runs out, there's this guy who picks a fight with him, they just leave the town. He kills this guy. This guy charges, lays down his guitar, and charges him. He kills the guy. Then I guess he feels bad suddenly, and he puts his sword down. The kid runs to bring him his sword. There's a lot of moments like that where it's like, it's kind of nice seeing the kid running to bring him his sword over the dunes as like his second or apprentice in some samurai movie or something. But it's not earned. I don't know, like,
no,
why has he laid down the sword? What does this mean for the characters? I don't know.
no, exactly. I love you said, because that's a really good point. That scene is so weird because again, Buddy gets called out. A guy called like and he kind of gets called out as being this guy is not so much as a hero, but like they've heard of him. They know who Buddy is, and he's being challenged somehow. Like, we don't know. I have no idea how, but he's being challenged. And Buddy sort of says, don't do this. Go away, live a life. Make a life. Find a wife with a picket in a house with a picket fence. Again, going back to that 50s Americana. Fine. Don't know why this thing's an issue, but then the guy comes out into the desert, plays. It sounds like a guitar, but he clearly has a banjo. And then they have this weird fight, and Buddy basically sort of says, I wish there was another way. I wish I could do something different, and drops his sword. And I think you're supposed to say that, like, oh, this has broken him. He didn't want to have to do this. He didn't want to have to kill someone. So now he's going to leave his quest to go to Vegas. Like, what? That makes no sense because that has not come up before. And then the kid basically brings him his sword and he's like, all right, we'll carry on. And then they're back to it. And it's just like, well, sorry, no, I want to come back to this. Like, why are you questioning your quest all of a sudden? Like, what's happened here?
Yeah, he's got tons of people. I mean, and this guy came at him, right? With this guy's ready to kill him. Like, why would you feel bad about this one? I'm confused. But then also, as you point out, as you narrate the story, I find myself wondering, right, why are you going to Las Vegas in the first place? Like, if you're so eager to give up this, it kind of like, well, I'm going to become the king. Do you want power? Like, do you think what does Las Vegas mean to anybody in this? Well, it's just the only town in this area, Okay. I mean, why do you want to become king? Why do they, why do they not have anyone there who wants to become king? Why is everybody going along the same route, to Las Vegas? Is there going to be some fight once they get there, or the survive? No, I mean, it seems to be just somebody will arrive and be anointed. I mean, what does this mean? How does this work? Like, I know that the movie doesn't want to answer those questions, but if you're going to have a character doubting his plan, you should know what that plan is and what it means to him, why he did it in the first place.
I feel like they're so keen on making this, or they think, whoever, no, I should say the guy who directed this and Jeffrey Falcon are the writers behind this. So Jeff Falcon and Lance Mungia are the writers as well as sort of the main. So it's not surprising that neither have a sterling or long career beyond this.
Yeah.
So it's almost like this is the draft of all these ideas that gets handed in, and then you go, cool, we're going to hand this off to Carrie Fisher, and she's going to polish this up and going to make it amazing. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's what's going to happen, and then you're going to make that film. It's this is almost like a fan film, isn't it? Or, I don't know. It's an indie Gonzo film, but I'm kind of sad that this didn't get picked up by like I don't know, like a Miramax or something that went right. We're going to put more money into this, and we're going to hand you off to so and so, and
Here's 6 million for reshoots.
yeah,
Right.
and
Yeah. No, I agree.
we're going to do this and that.
And this could have been an amazing movie. Like
yeah.
this is 6 million away from being an amazing movie.
Yeah. Well, even like modern day Gonzo films, like there are films that you and I like that, like you go, oh, that new like Shoot 'Em Up is an example where you go like massively underrated, kind of knows what it's doing. It's a bit of a mess, but it's brilliant for what it does. I think the same of like there are films that have action films in particular, like sci-fi or whatever. There are films that have cropped up that I think do these things really well. Most recently, sort of like Bullet Train with Brad Pitt. They'll do these things with ensemble sort of characters and actors. They've done this stuff before, and you can do these weird Gonzo films. Like this film could be like, if it was a quest film, if this was like, right, we are going to define the fact. Like, here's the quest, right? I'll fix it for you now. I know I always do this, but I'm going to do it because I want this thing to be fixed. Buddy has been living in the Outlands, and he has inherited this guitar because the guitar is clearly important. And this guitar, it's found out, much like, say, Excalibur or something else, is one of those items. It's pre the bomb dropping, right? Everyone else has guitars, but they're all made since the bomb drop, so they're not as good. This is a pre-bomb dropping guitar. And so it is a thing of beauty, and it has mystical powers of something that is going to allow him to be crowned as king. And there is a threat to this king. It's a fantasy film, basically. There's a threat to this kingdom that he will able to fix it with this magical thing. But he is also trained as a martial artist with a samurai sword. Go, right? Elvis is dead. The king is dead, and he has to go and take his rightful place and prove himself in Las Vegas. But there are forces that don't want him because they want the chaos. And of those is this mystical character that everyone just refers to as Death and is trying to chase him down and sending people after him. And then throughout the film, he comes across people in the wilderness, Mad Max style, with a bit of money, and you have well-shot fights. And it's either like, and the kid gets, you could do all of the stuff that's in here, but you just structure it better, give things more content, have a more charismatic lead that actually starts to form a connection with the kid. Have a whole section that's like, a music video in the middle. Have him playing his guitar and do a whole Buddy Holly rockabilly thing in the middle of the desert. Fuck it, go for it. I would love that. It would be amazing. Do all that like crazy stuff.
The guitar you need the key, you need the MacGuffin, right?
Yes.
The MacGuffin is what's going to allow him to be crowned. It could easily be the guitar, right? It could be that, this is somehow linked to Elvis, and Las Vegas, they're crazy. Whoever presents themselves as the new king basically just has to have some connection to Elvis. When I get this there, trust me.
Well, there's a prophecy about it. Elvis laid a prophecy down that whoever will present this kind of guitar will be anointed king. And it just so happens that Buddy has it, and for whatever, but like, you can really pad that out. But yeah, you just need that MacGuffin, don't you? You need the purpose, the motivation as to why this is happening, and then you just make the characters like just as batshit crazy. Fuck it, have a bunch of have a bowling team that's coming after him with killer 10 pinballs. I love it. Ace, do it.
Start with Fat Elvis dying on the toilet, King of Las Vegas, and the camera pans out, over his penthouse apartment, and there's the titles,
yeah,
and then there's the cut to Buddy Holly in the desert, going like, I was always more into Buddy Holly myself, but Why are you going? And somebody can just ask him. Why are you going to Las Vegas? Well, I got this guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
was told this as a boy, like this is important. Um,
yeah, these are easily fixable things. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could be Gonzo and work.
oh yeah.
There's that Elvis I mean Elvis impersonators, there's that like the Nick Cage movie, but then there's that one at the rest home. What is it?
Oh, Bubba Hotep with
Yeah, Butto
Bruce
Hotep,
Bruce yeah.
which is great fun.
Love that film. Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I forget the name of the black actor, but he claims he's JFK and he had his brain transplanted and I love that
Yeah.
film. It's crazy. But yeah, no stuff like that, like indie sort of like kind of gonzo silly films can be really good fun. But again, like you have to lean into that in the best possible way. And again, you said about like you mentioned From Dusk Till Dawn earlier on. There's a great example of like that. I mean, Robert Rodriguez, I think, is one of those. He would be perfect for this. Like
Oh
Rodriguez would
yeah.
have nailed this. Again, I think of like El Mariachi and Desperado. Again, like those are that kind of level of sort of like talent's what you want.
I love the Machete movies.
Yeah,
Like the
exactly.
first one's better, but I mean, like, they're good fun.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you're looking for. Like, in fact, I now want Rodriguez to make this film.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, but I think like in From Dusk Till Dawn, there's the scene where they are being attacked by the vampires, and the band are playing in the background, and it's ace. So like, yeah,
That's amazing.
you could do like
It's
things
so
like
much
that.
fun.
Could really really work. Um,
And if you have 15 million, there's going to be people who want to be in cameo, in those weird, little roles in the desert, some weird character,
yeah,
be like, yeah, a lot of fun.
I think you could. Yeah, it'd be really good fun actually if you did have that. Rodriguez is doing this for like 15 million. It's a bit of fun. Yeah, and you're gonna have like George Clooney play Elvis really
Yeah.
inappropriately, dying
Yeah, at the very
Elvis.
beginning,
Yeah,
the dying Elvis. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Uh, you know, they called me the king,
yeah,
but what kind of kingdom am I leaving?
yeah.
It's like it's
Really,
stupid, over the top,
yeah.
insanity.
I think
Yeah, and
yeah,
especially post Fallout, like, the success of Fallout on
mm,
Amazon, like it hasn't, that was such a success. And
yeah.
it didn't, but really we haven't seen something like that in the movie theaters,
No,
this could be that property.
and I think again, people are looking for action films, looking for something different. I think you do something gonzo that's like, they're trying, but they're leaning into the action. I mean, more recently there's been Boy Kills World, which was what's it, Skarsgård? I haven't seen it yet. I've heard it's quite good. They've done a couple of things where they've gone, oh, we're going to do sort of like weird gonzo action. Cool, let's see it. And it's been, hit and miss. But it feels a little bit like audiences are going like, yeah, but I want something, we need something weird. I think again, doesn't need to be in the cinema. This could be on Amazon. It could be on Netflix. Doesn't need to be mega budget. Doesn't need multitude of stars. Just needs to be sort of, good and good fun. And I think you would. This was supposed to be a trilogy originally.
Mm.
Was the idea.
Well, we haven't
And
discussed totally the end yet. So, like,
yeah,
Death has melted,
yeah.
and Buddy has been killed with the arrows, but I mean,
Before
he's
we get to that,
revived multiple times.
I just want to talk. There's a great scene that actually again works. One of the few times he plays guitar is when he is walking up the hill towards death, and he's playing the guitar as he walks up towards them, and the arrows are sort of flying past him and stuff. And the arrows look a bit daft. But again, you talk about how well this is actually shot at times. I love that scene when like Death is there, sort of like going, "Kill him," and he's just playing the guitar as he walks up the hill, ready to take them on. I was like, that's a cool scene. That's a really cool shot. And then again, it's not supported by anything that's going on around it, so it kind of sort of gets
Yeah,
swept away again. But
and it's not I mean, it's not a bad idea to have his love for the kid used as,
mm,
his Achilles
weakness,
heel.
yeah,
But I find myself like the kid runs ahead toward Las Vegas, and it's one of those revelatory like we're here, sort of moments, and then all of a sudden death and his minions appear,
Yeah.
like on the hill right above the main character, and they have arrows. So I find myself wondering, like, how did they sneak up on him? It's convenient that the kid ran forward like that. Right now, the kid is in this forward position where he can be killed by an arrow. Are they really like a competent bowman would be able to kill that kid
Hmm.
reliably? I'm not sure that these are competent bowmen. I
No.
mean, I'm not sure that they'd be able to do the job. Then the kid runs back and, nobody takes him out. I mean, there's a lot about this that just logistically
Yeah, I was gonna say the logistics are all over the
scratches my
place.
head.
Yeah, they're all over the place. Yes.
But the central idea of like I've come to care about that kid, carrying
Solid.
this Achilles heel, and a part of this character's arc. Yeah, solid idea,
Mm.
I like that it was bows and arrows, instead of guns, which helps with the budget, but also, makes sense in the
Mm.
context. You know, I like this idea. It's like he yells, like kid, go, run. Well, aren't they just going to shoot him down?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't
Yeah.
seem, I just scratched my head. So then he has this conflict after he climbs the hill playing the guitar with Death. And it's kind, we pointed out like Death looks great,
Mm.
in one of the few FX shots. Looks amazing. And then, but then the kid melts Death with water, and then
Yeah.
Buddy has disappeared too and has melted into his clothing. And the kid takes his clothing and walks into Vegas carrying the guitar and the sword and dressed as Buddy. So it's this kind of like passing of the torch kind of thing. Look, at least that resolves the Lone Wolf and Cub story, right, in one
Hmm.
movie. But why does Buddy disappear again? Is he also a supernatural character?
I didn't know if he did. I was really confused by this because at one point, like, you see the kid pulling the clothes, but I never see Buddy again. So I was like, is he
No, Buddy's
gone? Is he dead?
melted like death,
Right.
except without water. I mean, you see like the arrow sticking out of the clothes and stuff. Like, I think, Buddy's corpse has dematerialized.
Hmm.
Like, why? What does
I,
that mean? Does that mean that he also is a supernatural character and that's why everybody knew his reputation? Like, I don't know.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know what we're supposed to think about that.
Yeah, legit. I don't know. Like, I couldn't make head nor tail really of that ending where I was like, I don't really know what's just happened. Like, the Death's been, like I say, been beaten by water. Buddy collapses. Before that happens, by the way, like Buddy collapses, and then the kid takes on Death, and you're like, what? No, almost like simultaneously. And I'm like, this, the timing of this is all off. Like everything, this pit is
Mhm.
off. I mean, it all happens, and then you see the kid in the clothes walking, and I was really, again, I had to sort of tap backwards because I'm like, I don't know what I've just missed. I don't get this bit, and then I was like, oh, it's the kid walking in the clothes dressed as Buddy. Is
Yeah.
he now going to become king? Is he going to present his guitar, and the world's going to be run by like an
I think
8-year-old?
so.
But I don't
I
know.
think so, but I don't know. I mean, I think
Whoa.
the
So,
emotional idea is the passing of the torch, but
okay, the only thing I was curious about is as he's walking along, the
the
last,
only thing.
yeah, all right, as he's walking along towards this Vegas, Lost Vegas, you see the kid in all the baggy clothes and all this other stuff, but then it superimposes the figure of Buddy walking into Vegas, and I was like, okay, is that supposed to be like Buddy is now, is Buddy now like
His
in,
spirit.
is he possessed the kid? Or is this a metaphor that he's now taking on the journey, the quest of Buddy? Or is it like a force ghost and he's now sort of walking with, like, I don't know. Like there's nothing here to tell me what that means or what it's about. And then it ends. So yeah, I don't know. It's a real weird I mean, I've just, sorry, I do want to say this, right? Because I've got it here. This obviously released on DVD at some point. and one of the photos on IMDb, because I like to reference them because they remind me of stuff, is the name of the title, the name of the chapters as is through the film on the DVD. And I'm going to read them through. There are 14, and I'm going to name them all. All right. And I want you to know, does this actually tell you what's happening in that scene? So the first one's called The United States of Russia. I'm assuming that's just the titles.
Right.
Rumble at the Bowling Alley. Well, you know it was bowling.
Not actually at a bowling alley.
Not actually at a bowling alley.
The
Entering Nevada Badlands. Okay, maybe.
Okay.
Meet the Cleavers, which I'm assuming is the family.
The cannibals.
The cannibals, right? Cometh the Cosmonauts.
Oh yeah, there's that weird guy in the spacesuit, like another crazy idea,
Yeah.
but just like totally forgettable. Yeah,
Completely forgot about that.
I forgot. I didn't even connect that. Yeah, I guess he's supposed to be a cosmonaut instead of an astronaut. I just thought like that's a cool. That I guess there's a guy in a spacesuit. Like I don't know why. Maybe a line about you're protecting from radiation, or I mean something.
It was just there and gone. It made no sense to me. A boy on his bike, which is obviously I think when they get the bike. The little town of Fallout. No, that's a good point. Yeah, the little town of Fallout, which we mentioned. The Dune Sea. I mean, they're trying to give this some real sort of like heavyweight thing, and that's just them in the desert. Death carries a pale guitar. The windmill people. Then you have the Russian army. Then the final three are the really interesting: slouching towards Vegas. Dueling with Death, and the last one, A New Beginning.
No, that is what it is, right? I mean, the kid has inherited Buddy's quest, and I think that the superimposition is meant to just be that he's inherited Buddy's quest and spirit and ethos. But I don't know. I don't need to know where the kid came from, right? The Mad Max movies don't do that either, But
yeah.
You have a sense of place. You have a sense of, like, I don't know. I don't need to know what everything is in the rest of the world, right? I don't need all that, but I need some sense of like, why are they going to Las Vegas? What, how is this social structure ordered? Why is Las Vegas suddenly giant industrial plant? I mean, I don't really understand any of this.
When we go back to, I think we did at the very beginning, and I think it's acted as a bit of an anchor point for certain type. There's a certain type of Mad Max-esque post-apocalypse film, right? We've come across them repeatedly. I would say even A Boy and His Dog to an extent, even though they came around at the same time. But like Tank Girl, this, you get even Hell Comes to Frogtown. Like you get this point of post-apocalypse world, individual that is, the center of this world is the crazy one or is the protagonist. And then comes across crazy people in a world that's basically using twisted versions of current technology in a post-apocalypse way, all right? Whether it be cars or whatever, and people have gone crazy. Well, one of the reasons I think the Mad Max films, in particular like Road Warrior, and even like Beyond Thunderdome and stuff, they all work, is because despite the craziness, there is often relatable grounding elements when you're like, yeah, I know that person. Right. So in Road Warrior, I forget the first one, but in Road Warrior in particular, whilst you've got like Max, who acts a bit of a go-between, and you've got the crazy people from the wasteland, Humongous and his crew, the people of the refinery are like, you recognize them, like they're normal. There's a bit of like Mad Max wasteland, but they're not crazy. They want to be protected. So you get a grounding element. You can keep accessing it. They're the sort of the people that are going to provide you with the exposition. We're trying to survive in this nuts world because of this and this, and they enter Max as
we should just leave the refinery. We should go. Well, no, we should stay. Right?
Exactly.
That gives you some understanding of what they're thinking.
Here's the plan. Here's the deal that we're going to lay out for Max. That kind of thing. Same with the Beyond Thunderdome. You get those sort of things. You get. Even Auntie Entity is sort of saying that she's there, like, I rule this place. It's kind of, it's a bit of a powder keg. Here's what we need to do. and then you meet the kids from Tomorrowland, all that shit. But they've got this grounding of pre-apocalypse understanding, also the stuff. You keep getting those grounding elements that bring you in and go. So exactly, so someone can go, here's the plot. Here's the reason we want to get to, because we want to survive, or we think if we get to this part of Australia, we're going to find a civilization, right? Always the same. And the same with Fury Road, right? Furiosa and that thing is like, we've got to get to the Greenland because that's where that's where we're going to survive. We get away from the crazies, we go to that place. There's the quest. Introduce as much mad shit along the way, but you need those grounding solid elements to take you there. Even Tank Girl kind of does it in a roundabout way. It doesn't do it well, but it's kind of like
there's more than this.
But there's more than this. Like, it wants
there's
to
a
tell
company
you,
that runs everything, and
and it's evil, and it's now got the kid, and it's now got that girl, and so Tank Girl's got to get involved, and so on and so forth, right? Kangaroos be damned. Like, you can do all that shit, but you need that defining mission to ground people so you can relate to them. This just sort of wants to go, we're going to show you the crazy shit. Everyone's crazy. Nothing makes any sense. We don't want to give you that access point. It almost like refuses to give you that access point at every turn. And I think that's the main problem with this film, as we keep saying, like, if you give it a grounding element of, even like, make your main character like the sane one in this insane world, then it works. You just need a standard quest, but you can do all the crazy shit around it, but you need that grounding element to give you the plot and the exposition. It just, otherwise, like you say, it's just a bunch of scenes that don't really do anything.
Yeah, this does tend to feel that way. It does seem to me that in some ways it's ahead of its time. It's stripping away those characters so that nobody has any motivation. You sort of have the least amount of explanation of this world possible. It does seem to prefigure Fury Road, especially, but I think it's the best case of this, but also like John Wick. And this idea of like, because John Wick is not a character, right? He's got one line, right? Like, he's got one motivation, right? Like, you can explain who he is in one sentence. But, and this idea, especially around those movies released around the same time, of just kind of like boiling down the action movie to its bare essentials, right? And I think this is doing something very similar to that years earlier. The problem is that it's not doing a great job of it. Like those movies were visual feats. Yeah. This movie is trying to can't afford to be that. So it's trying to be a gonzo, crazy, allegorical kind of thing. But the problem is those other movies are very grounded in realism. This is a different kind of mode. And we got more character. Like, John Wick is a well-developed character compared to this guy. And that's hard to do.
John Wick's a really good example, actually, because again, like, I love I do actually really enjoy the John Wick series. I think the John Wick series, they're fantastical. In fact, they're a really good example of this, right? Of, we're going to build a fantastical world that barely makes any sense, of a hierarchy of assassins and underworld elements that don't seem to scratch the surface of the real world. They can have battles in the street and the police don't get involved, and there's all kinds of international travel for people that have just killed a bunch of people and no one seems to notice. Like, it makes no sense. The films make no sense, but they're a fantasy. That's fine. It's not about that. It's about the fighting. But go back to that first
I think they make less and less sense as it goes on.
Oh, exactly. Yes, I completely agree. I still love them and think they're really cool, but because of the action, I think that, they set it up and go, this is what we're going to do. But that first one, gives you two scenes that basically allow you to enjoy everything else and not have to worry about it. The first one is, he has like the flashback with his wife, and you find out why he's given the dog. All right, so his wife is dies of cancer, and she leaves him the dog so that he doesn't So he basically doesn't lose his humanity, gives him something to love, right? That's the idea. So it's his anchoring point for his grief, which is why he goes off on, so that's where the dog's killed. That's the trigger point.
Mhm.
The second point that he gives you is the scene between the Russian kid and his father. And when the father basically he says, you stole John Wick's car. And the guy's like, oh shit. And he basically says he's Baba Yaga. Like it's all a nonsense, but he's like, no, this is the guy that you
Don't fuck with.
you do not mess with. Yeah, this is the guy that you call to kill death. Like this is they really
Yeah.
build. There's basically a whole scene where they're like, what you have done is you've unleashed, you've uncorked the bottle, and we're in.
Right.
If the Russian head of the Russian mafia is going like, we're in trouble,
Mhm.
it sets you up to say, oh,
John Wick's a badass.
John Wick's a badass. Like we
He's
don't
got a
need,
rep.
yeah, this guy's got a reputation. We don't need to know anymore. This guy's scared of him. He once killed a guy with a pencil. That's all we need to know. He did something. There's this mystical thing. He explains it like we let him retire because he completed like these Herculean assassin tasks and survived. He wasn't supposed to, but we let him go. You've pulled him back in. Those two scenes literally go, here's what you care about the dog. Here's what you care about John Wick.
Right.
And that's it.
One is motivation. One is, how that character fits within this larger world.
Exactly. And
they're
two,
both shorthand. I mean, they're both
exactly.
like as minimal as possible.
They're about in a film that's probably like just shy of 140, 1 hour 40 minutes. Those make up probably like 7 minutes.
Yeah,
and that's
max.
it. Max. Yeah. And then the rest is crazy shit. But you know why? You've been given that information.
Right.
So you can do all the crazy shit you want because you've got that information in shorthand, but shorthand that's been well presented enough that you go, oh, I get it. And I think that's all you need. That's a nice, concise, low budget way of doing it. This film doesn't know that.
Right.
And so that's what you need. You need someone, even that kid. There's a scene in this film that would give you that opportunity. When he gets to Fallout and you see that other person, and they're like, your buddy, you're legendary because of this, this, and this. You are the singing samurai or whatever the feck you want to call him. Like you need to have that thing of, and someone goes, what do you mean is this? And he goes, this is the guy that's, killed, he took on the Russians, or he killed, we know he killed, make up some of the random gang from.
That's the John Wick.
The John Wick thing. Make him the badass.
Moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just a dude that doesn't talk much.
Yeah, and then you have the questions of, how do they know, who is he? How do you know about the reputation? Why does he, and then you need one other thing, which is the personal motivation. Why is he going to Las Vegas? What is his motivation?
Yeah.
For him to question his quest, I mean, I get it's a quest, it's an episodic kind of thing, I mean, later he collapses in the desert. I mean, they want this to be, an allegorical kind of quest movie. But again, we just need a little bit to know, who is this guy? Why does he have this reputation? Why does he, want to go to Las Vegas and become the king? If you're going to have a point of your narrative be that he's doubting that, maybe show why he wanted it in the first place, it doesn't take much.
No. I mean, yeah, this is it. I mean, you need just enough information. I mean, it helps if you've got like a charismatic star that can carry some of this stuff, or like, or it's going to be sort of shot well. I mean, just John Wick as continuous, as an example of comparison for two other elements that we've talked about. As you say, there's not much going on with John Wick. Again, he wears a similar costume. He wears a suit, and it's sort of like it, but it's Keanu Reeves being Keanu Reeves. He's kind of, monosyllabic. It doesn't, he's doesn't not much talking going on. He talks with his guns and a bit of fighting. That's the point. There's a little bit of banter going on. You could have that in this, but the point is as well. It's shot by a guy. It was shot by a guy. Veach, who's a stunt coordinator. Like, so the guy's like, this is how you shoot a stunt. You don't do close-ups. You do long shots and mid shots because you want to see people doing the things that they're going to do. Like that's the impressive bit. That's what people are coming to see. And so yeah, that's again why I think John Wick, low budget, that first one, incredibly low budget, really, was such a massive success because it's so straightforward. But you can have gonzo crazy fights in that and do all the other shit, and you could in this, but you need that anchoring point. And I think this just goes to show that like why good writing, just use it before structure, like script writing that's just based around solid 3-act structure or 5-act structure. Just know the fundamentals of what it is you're trying to present.
Right. Yeah, and you can break all those things, right? But you have to break them deliberately. And like the thing is, I mean, you're a bigger fan of John Wick than I am. But I know that John Wick knows what it is, right? Like it knows how radical it is with its stripped down character, its stripped down narrative, and that it wants to be like the most glorious, beautiful hour and a half of carnage that you have ever seen, like a symphony of violence, right? And that's pretty much like, you judge it by what it wants to be, and it does a phenomenal job of being that. And you can kind of pull away from it and say, it doesn't really amount to much. I sort of feel a little, let down at the end of it. But I have to say, it accomplishes what it clearly wants to do. But I know what it wants to do because it's clearly communicated that from the get-go, right? I mean, there's no doubt what it's doing, and it's breaking certain rules, but you know that it is very conscious of that. This movie does not do that. It does not communicate to you what it is, that it knows that it's even like playing with aspect ratio. I mean, it does not communicate that. And that's something that like, Tarantino does a good job of doing that. Rodriguez does a good job of doing that. You know that, it's like, oh, we switched to black and white. Tarantino didn't happen to switch to black and white. Like this was a stylist decision.
He didn't lean on a switch and be like, oh.
Yeah, the Hateful Eight are like, yeah, one of them bumped into the color switch. Yeah, and I mean, it's that sense of just being deliberate and feeling considered. The one other thing that this has to communicate early on is what kind of universe it's in. That is this in a universe with death and the supernatural? And you don't have to necessarily resolve that, but you have to have some questionably mystical element early on, right? So that it's not like, oh, death melts by water, right? Later, and also maybe the samurai disappears. I mean, we need to know what kind of universe we are in or might be in, right? You do those three things, and outside of just cleaning stuff up, you're golden.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think this is one of those things that we've talked about a few times where we watch a film and we know it's like, oh, this is like what, 4 or 5 degrees off being something really special. Like, no, it doesn't have to be a massive hit because you say it's quite ahead of its time, but we're still going like, no, this is almost there. This is so close to being something really special. And I feel that with this film, like constantly, where I'm like, oh, yeah, no, this is, the idea is here and there's some presentation that's really cool, but it's kind of let down by things.
It does feel like there's it feels like there's an agenda here. It feels like, I would say, like, superficially, it feels like every idea has just been thrown in, right? But then there are these indications, like the bowlers are a perfect example, right? Where you're just like, yeah, the gumballs. I mean, there's every indication is, just been thrown in. I wish you saw him blowing a bubble. I mean, it's like there's so much stuff that's just kind of like, why? Is he bouncing it? Does nobody care about dirt? Why? He eats the gumball. Is he chewing it? We don't ever see him chewing it later. That's just the awkwardness that needs to be smoothed over. But I mean, it does feel as if like, somebody who had a ton of ideas who just threw those crazy gonzo ideas in, But then there are those indications, like how each group kind of has a different music, or most of them do,
Mm-hmm.
where you sort of feel like, oh, there's something schematic here. There's a desire toward a sense of order, a desire toward, a presenting this quest in a way that makes sense, at least symbolically. And yet there's not enough of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That instinct is just sort of like 25% there. Um, and needs to be filled. But I'm with you. Like, this is, as a proof of concept, this is amazing. This is
Yeah.
like, if this is your student film, like, and I guess he had directed some music videos before,
Mm-hmm.
it shows where he came out of. But, so it's not a student film. But I mean, if this is your first movie that you get remade once, a studio gives you a little bit of money, this would be a cult classic. This would be like, hey, but have you checked out the original? Like, it's, it's more, raw for all of its roughness, there are things they got wrong in the big budget remake,
Yeah.
um
Yeah. Yeah. People arguing over, like, oh no, the original is better. And you don't clearly not. But yeah, it's just, you're right. This is one of those things, isn't it? Like, this is, you say, one of those things that a studio would see and go, I can see something here, but we need to refine this into something else. Like this, as you said, needs 6 million. Go do some reshoots. We'll go do this. We're going to give you some sets, so the Fallout town looks like a town and not just a room in an off in a I don't know where. But yeah, things like that like this needs really to pull that together. The other thing that's weird about this film, just so I want to finish on this really about sort of it's not so much its history, but this came out in 1998, had a very sort of limited theatrical release, didn't make any money, and kind of just disappeared. It was then released on a very, again, short run on DVD, and then again just disappeared. Like, you and I watched it on YouTube, and it'd been on YouTube like as a video for some time. Like, this isn't added recently. That's been there a while, and no one's contested it and said, like, this should be taken down. Like, it's
Mhm.
no streaming service. Apparently, Vinegar Syndrome bought the rights to redistribute it in 2021, and nothing's been heard since. They were going to do a cleaned up version of stuff, which might be some of the 4K that you've seen. Maybe they sort of released little clips of it or something. I don't know. But it's one of those films that this should be a cult classic. Like, this is the kind of film that should have like a small but kind of devout following. Like, I'm really confused as to why this hasn't been. This feels like the kind of film that should be found. Like, this is the kind of thing where I would thought there'd be some young director that's come through and made a film and be like, oh well, for me, that film that I saw too young, or I thought and really blew me away, was Six String Samurai. Like, it feels like it should be referenced in some way, but just has disappeared off the radar of so many people. I mean, this was your
Hmm.
suggestion for this. So where did you find it? Was it on a list or something? Or
Yeah, so I'm with you. That this needs to be more widely available. So I have to admit where I found this.
mm.
And this is one of the weirdest footnotes to Six String Samurai, which is that there is a comic book.
Oh,
So Rob Liefeld's Awesome Comics, which sort of
that's an
exists.
oxymoron. That's an oxymoron in itself, really, isn't it?
Well,
But yeah,
it's one of those, like, if you're shouting it from the rooftops, you probably have a small penis,
yeah.
Um, yeah, so Awesome Comics, which, sort of when Liefeld left Image and
Mm.
he was publishing Alan Moore Supreme at the time,
Mm-hmm.
it transitioned over into Awesome Comics for a while, before he rejoined Image. And Awesome Comics did a Six String Samurai one shot
Oh,
with two stories in it. The first is illustrated by Rob Liefeld. and is like an interquel that takes place between scenes with the samurai and the kid. And then there's a backup story, which is by another artist that is kind of like not in continuity. It's basically just like the samurai fights death and the kid kills death, and basically like the entire story in 6 pages or something. Symbolically or something, or just the climax. A
Okay.
different version of it, but I was just happening through comics and I was like, oh, this is, I was looking at sci-fi movies, I was looking at comics and stuff, and it was the comic that got me to be like, what the hell is this? Like I have to investigate this. Um, and that led me back to the movie, and I was like, this looks amazing. I
Yeah.
have to watch this movie. This is so weird. And why was that, why was there a comic book?
Yeah. I mean, Rob Liefeld's got. I'm just trying to look for it now, but I've actually just found there is a Blu-ray of this as well, but um, really expensive. But I was just having a look. Like, I don't know, why is there a comic of this?
Well, apparently, Rob found it early on. It
Oh,
was
it's
still
very
being
Rob.
called The
It's
Blade.
it's very Rob Liefeld. I've just found pictures
Oh,
of
it
it.
is. No, if you look at the art, you know who did that art
Yeah,
right away.
yeah, um, yeah.
Yeah, so Liefeld apparently saw like a early. He's got a letter in there, and he says, from the minute I saw Six String Samurai, I was hooked. Mind you, when I saw it, it was only 5 minutes of raw, unedited footage, and it was called The Blade, but I dug it just the same. There are 2 typos in that those first 2 sentences, but never mind. I mean, the point is, he, I guess, just clued into it really early and decided, yeah, hell yeah, I'll do an adaptation or an interquel kind of thing.
I mean,
But I
it's
mean, this is awesome. Like, I want there to be like, I mean, I love that Rob Liefeld did it, but I mean, like, I want there to be like Six String Samurai, merchandise and stuff.
yeah. I mean, I'm looking. I've just put in the comic. There's other things like the fact I've just noticed there's a line. There's a whole thing about wanting a ratchet to fix the bike as
Mm.
well, which I've forgotten about when he trades the kid in. But
And then they mentioned ratchets later on, and it's yet another just kind of like weird thing. Like, oh, are ratchets really important in this world for some reason? Like,
yeah, I
what's
don't know.
going
Like,
on here?
putting the comic in, one of the things that's interesting is, I mean, you're right. It's very Rob Liefeld. It's kind of like both cool and terrible at the same time. There's a lot of fan art as well, though. Like lots of people have drawn stuff, and it's on there. So I mean, it seems to have a little bit of an audience. And I said that there has been a Blu-ray of this, um, but even that seems to have got like a really small printing. Like it's 50 quid to pick up the Blu-ray. I'm not going to spend that on this, but yeah, it's bizarre. Like this feels like this should be like the 90s version of Buckaroo Banzai, where people are
Yeah.
like, "Oh no, this is weird and it's amazing," and is this thing? Yeah, I don't know why this hasn't got more of a support base, really.
Well, A24, if you're listening, right, take 10-15 million dollars, and you've got a movie that doesn't need to recoup a lot of money, that's
Yeah.
got at least some built-in fan base, that, is a weird story, that I mean, and the thing is, like you mentioned the fan art, like the movie poster is amazing.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
just the visual of a guy who looks like Buddy Holly carrying a samurai sword and a guitar,
Yeah.
is
And a beaten up
killer.
umbrella as well in the film, which is kind of cool as well. So
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is, with sort of like the kid, I mean, look, the visuals sell themselves,
mm,
right? This is a movie. I mean, so many movies you have trouble distilling into a poster, and so many movie posters just suck, right?
yeah.
This is one of those movies where, like, no, what this movie is just based on that. And we just need a little bit more connective tissue, a little bit more structure, a little bit more money. And this could be, a sort of cultural milestone.
Mm. Yeah, no, I agree. This needs to be more so when we say, we laugh about sort of like Hell Comes to Frogtown being one of those where you're like, give it more money. I think what I'm saying is I'm kind of aching for weird.
Rob Liefeld projects.
No, that I can put to bed pretty quickly.
The
No,
Youngblood movie.
yeah, yeah. No, what we're looking for, I think, is like those Gonzo action films. Like, there's something that's going to go like, yeah, we are going to be weird, and I like those things. There are films I haven't seen it yet. Like there's, I said, but there's Boy Kills World. I've recently rented ready to watch. There was one called Guns Akimbo that had Daniel Radcliffe in. That was kind of fun. I enjoyed that. I think Bullet Train was a good film. Um, they've done it a few times where they've just done these kind of like, they haven't gone full Gonzo, but they're like, oh, we're going to do an ensemble thing of like weird characters. Even similar to it is Netflix did what's it Academy?
Umbrella Academy.
Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
Then they had
Yeah.
Doom Patrol on Max as well. Like, where they've gone like, oh no, we're going to do an ensemble thing and it's going to be weird and we're going to do action and stuff in it. Like, and they both did relatively well. I just think we could, there's a gap there where someone's going to go, right, let's do some really cool, weird stuff.
And this, we're talking, it's only been a few years since Fallout was such a big success for Amazon Prime.
Well, last year, 23 came out, 2023, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a fun series, but
Yeah,
I mean, it really did gonzo numbers. I mean, it reinvigorated those video games, which are a very mixed bag. And then, I've read all the people going like, this is not what I expected. I'm running around trying to collect
this is not
ammunition.
This is not what the TV show told me it was going to be.
Yeah. Where's Walter Goggins? Yeah. So, but I mean, so you have the Fallout thing, and you have more of an audience. I think there's more of an audience with, A24 and some of those other studios, that are bringing in these lower budget movies. This has the sort of like samurai thing set in an alternate future, Old West kind of elements. I mean, there's, visually it's striking, and especially Rodriguez and Tarantino aren't doing as much of that crazy, stuff anymore. I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer, especially you bring it in at like 15 million,
low budget. And if you get it right, it becomes, as you said, a bit of a, it can become like a cultural milestone or a cultural moment. Because of that iconic view, you see like the poster being so cool. Like, all right, here's the merchandising that goes with it then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, I mean, this is something you could do sequels, you could do spin-offs, you could do comics, you could do, novels. I mean,
one thing I would do, right? I don't know who's alive or what's doing what, but like, bring back Jeffrey Falcon just for a cameo, make sure he's in it in some way. I actually would completely reuse this soundtrack. I actually love the soundtrack. It gets overused and like it's too dense. Yeah. Like I think the soundtrack is probably like minutes longer than the actual film. So it's sort of like it's kind of dense. But I'd reuse it, spread it out, use it more sparsely and stuff. But like there's no need even to remake the soundtrack. Just reuse the music from this film. It's ace. It really does capture something quite cool. But yeah, I don't know. There's just when I see like the slate of things, I know everyone says, "Oh, it's all about remakes and da 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 da." All right, cool. But I'm seeing like remakes, or there's a series at the moment. I think it's called Apartment 41, and it's like, oh, it's a prequel to Rosemary's Baby, and I'm like, all right, that's not something that ever crossed my mind, having seen that film and read the book, that needed to happen. Fair enough.
Nobody ever saw. Rosemary's Baby is my favorite horror movie of all time.
Great film.
Nobody ever watched Rosemary's Baby and said, "I need more of this franchise."
Yeah. It's the same. Like I'm seeing things at the moment when they're like, "Oh, we're doing this, or we're going to remake or tap into that IP," and I'm constantly going like, "Why?" Because that seems like an odd choice to make.
Well, we need Sam Spade in France.
Yes, exactly.
That is Sam's natural milieu.
Yeah, but there's things like that where you're going like, I haven't really watched. I haven't watched that, but I know we're referencing because we obviously talked about Clive Owen as well recently. But like, I just see films like this, and I'm like, there's IPs just sat in a box somewhere that no one's going like, huh? We have, we have martial artists like Scott Adkins that could do this shit, and it could actually be really cool. And like, let's just make that low budget, do this, do that. It just seems odd that like
Yeah.
all I ever hear is like, I mean, we talk about this quite a lot, and we will finish on this, but Warner Brothers is struggling constantly. Max, like HBO is they bring all this stuff up. They keep trying to build this stuff up, like Discovery and all these things. You hear all this constantly moving. Oh, they're really struggling for IPs. And I'm sat here, and maybe it's easier for me, but going like, this doesn't feel this difficult. Like what? Because what you're looking for is you're trying to map the Marvel model and all this other stuff. Fuck that, right? Do your DC thing. Let that do its thing. Just go and find weird shit. Like you're taking on the wrong part.
Well,
That's what I keep thinking.
We always talk about budgets, right?
Yeah,
in these small studios.
Ludicrous.
I mean, the reality is, and I've never seen a single one of these movies, but the reality is the Conjuring universe has a greater return on investment than the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes.
I mean,
I've watched them all.
low.
Yeah.
I mean, and look, the other thing is there are a million actors, there are a million brilliant directors that you can get relatively cheap and have them do an amazing job. I mean, what has Oliver Stone done lately? One of the best directors who's ever lived, and can't get a gig, like, you want to do Six String Samurai? I mean, we'll pay you $1 million, yeah, I mean, there's so many just talented people out there, and so many IPs that just don't necessarily, not everything needs to be a $500 million to $1.5 billion tentpole movie.
No.
And the great thing about bringing stuff in at 15 million is, if this fails, right, it probably still recoups most of its money, but if it's successful, now you have a giant franchise, that is easily able to turn, 1, 2, 300 million at the box office, able to do, sequels, not licenses, everything. And you got that for what, 15 million, 20 million? I mean,
the best look, and I referenced him again, and I will reference it again now, right? Terrifier 3 that's just come out. It's doing all the business, and again, like it's not making like hundreds of millions. It's not going to be $1 billion movie, but it was made for like what, barely 5 million, or barely, it was made for a couple million. Now making gangbusters, right? It's doing loads of money, but then it was made independently as well, right? So Wassett Leone has done the film. He's harvested the money, got all this stuff. It's returning to investors. The rest is his. Do what you want. But, and here's the big but of all this, or let's say because it's not counter. He's in addition to having made a film that's making a lot of money, he's now created a character in Art the Clown that is going to appear on merchandise. That like McFarlane toys are going to turn up, and you're like, cool, can we do a movie Maniacs of this? Yes, you can. Can I have him on my lunchbox and my t-shirts and on this? Yes, you can. Great. Are we going to do a novelization? Yes, they are. Am I going to buy it? Of course I bloody am. But like this, he has become, Art the Clown has now become a horror icon. That character is going to appear in comics, I'm sure of it. They're going to appear in other things. That when that comes out on DVD, they're going to have a DVD. They're going to have a double DVD. You're going to have a triple DVD. You can have the Blu-ray. You can have you can have the Steelbook. If I know all this stuff's coming, you can have the Blu-ray, the 4K. Like that film is going to continue to make money in every format. It's going to go on streaming. It's going to. Do you know what I mean? Like, and again, everything at this point, it's paid for itself already. Everything else that comes out now, apart from the production costs of those materials, is all gravy. That's it. You've done it. Well done. And that's what I'm sort of saying. Like, this constant need to be like, oh, no, we've got to turn this into a massive multi-film franchise. And you're like, it's no horror is now the most successful in the last 10 years. Has been the most profitable genre of film.
Well, it has been for even longer, right? I
Yeah,
mean, because
yeah.
you have stuff like Blair Witch,
Mm.
I mean, and the great thing about horror is you can bring it in cheap. Sci-fi is expensive, right?
But it doesn't
Um,
need to be, does it?
but it doesn't have to be. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be, and especially, a little bit of special effects, being careful with your budgets. I mean, I would even say that, look at the success of Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
That's not a low budget movie, but he brought it in just under 100
Mm.
and, was offered 150 million
Yeah.
and took the 100 because he wanted the release. And they figured out how to do it with, predominantly practical effects,
Hmm.
giving actors and talent, a piece of the action instead of money up front. And that has been one of the most successful movies of
Yeah.
the year.
Yeah.
I mean, and look, if it failed, but the other thing is there was more creative control because
Mhm.
it's $100 million movie. You don't have that creative control on a Marvel movie. You
No.
don't have that creative control on Flash. You don't have that stuff, and you can do weirder, more idiosyncratic stuff and throw shit at the wall and see what sticks, and
Well,
have a little bit of editing help like this movie needed, right? A little bit of, just
yeah.
kind of people looking over the shoulder going like, here's a way you could make that better, bro.
Yeah.
Instead of just guiding the whole ship like the big budget
Well,
movies.
even Romulus this year, Alien Romulus. Now, you and I weren't fans of that film. We felt there was a lot wrong with that film. But again, low.
Hmm.
That was a low budget. Like that was brought in low, and has done a lot of
Yeah.
has done gangbusters. So
Yeah, there's no reason why, I mean, unless you're doing like Dune, right? And you need that budget to do those special effects and those shots. There's no reason why any movie needs to be more than,
no.
you know. And then, you know what? You could get more Ghostbusters movies.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you care about franchises, if you care about cool properties and stuff, we could get more of them. We just have to, aim a little lower.
Well, an interesting thing that this seems to be working with, and we'll see what happens next year. I keep saying we're going to end, but we should end this because this is for the future. And we'll
Mhm.
come back to this. Prey was so successful as a film for Disney Plus, and again, I'm sure we have our views on it. It is good and bad. It has some great bits and some bad bits, but was so successful. Disney have released it as physical media, and it's done well on physical media. That they have now greenlit and apparently are well into filming not
Mhm.
one but two Predator films for next year. Or they just call them two Predator projects from the same person that made Prey. And one of the reasons that they weren't wholly worried about them and they haven't been, throwing up everything about them is because they are low or medium budget.
Mhm.
And they made a good point of saying, we're comfortable with what's being made, we're comfortable with what it's costing, and we're comfortable with the time it's taking.
Mhm. Well, look at movies that the two of us love. Look at John Carter.
Yeah,
John Carter would have gotten sequels no problem if it had been brought at 100 million.
yeah,
It did fine at the box office. It just didn't do fine for a $250 million
yeah.
budget or whatever it was.
In
I mean,
2012 as well. That's 12 years ago. So you know,
Superman Returns. I don't know
hmm
why the hell, we didn't get that wasn't the start of a DC cinematic universe. It did almost as well as Man of Steel, several years earlier, but it was a $200 million
hmm
movie. So you're like, well, it only made 400 million worldwide. Well, I mean, you just don't have the multipliers there. Bring
no,
this shit in. Bring this shit in cheap. There's no reason any movie outside of, Dune Part 3 needs to
mm,
be $200 million.
yeah,
This is a joke. I mean, you can bankroll countries for this amount of
yeah,
money, right? Like, solve homelessness.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I mean, we're making movies, man.
yeah,
And it's stuff like, look, we have so much passion for this stuff. This is why we do this and why we really support you guys helping us on Patreon. We love these movies and we love, Gonzo movies. And yeah, if we rewrite on the spot and you're amazing at doing it, it's because we want these movies to be better. And we have
Yeah.
such love and passion for this stuff. And this movie is, not a great movie, but it has crazy ideas and is so close to being something amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I mean, this is so close to being like, oh, my third favorite cult film. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's just off. It's just yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there'd be people getting 6-string samurai tattoos.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
It's a thing.
No, I agree. Like, people have that sort of like everywhere you go, there you are. There's a line from Buckaroo Banzai has been used. If it was delivered really well, if you were me, you'd be good looking. Would be, I can imagine being a catchphrase used a lot. So it's good. Anyway, let's leave it there because we could go on. I think it's allowed. We didn't know what we were going to talk about. We've talked because that's what we're good at. But I do think this opens up some interesting sort of wider pieces around why films succeed and why films should be done professionally and given at least a good budget, not a mega budget, but a good budget to allow to become the thing they're supposed to become. Anyway.
And I think it's fun to excavate some of these movies. I mean, I'd never seen when, Hell Comes to Frogtown. Neither of us has seen 6-String Samurai, and it's fun to find these gems. And some of them are more shiny than others. Some of them are a little rough and need some cutting work. But but it's so much fun excavating these with you.
The little artifacts, the little film archaeological artifacts that were funny. Yeah, I love doing this. I love having these conversations. I also love watching this film and about halfway through, having that look on my face of going, I'm not entirely sure whether I like this or not or where this is going, but it's all.
I kind of hate this. I kind of love it. Yeah.
But I'm going to look forward to the conversation. Anyway, for now, Julian, thank you very much for introducing me to 6-String Samurai and for this conversation.
Thank Rob Liefeld. This is the only time we're going to get to say that sentence.
Yes, quite probably. Yeah, I'll reflect on that. We'll see. But ladies and gentlemen, as well, thank you very much as always for supporting us. Let us know. I will actually put the link into the YouTube in the notes below. So go check it out. I'm fascinated to see what you think of this, or if you've ever heard of it, for that matter, because it's a new one. But for now, the next one we're returning to something. We've had returns to actors, we've had returns to things. The next episode, I believe, we are returning to an alternate version of something we did on the main feed. We did On the Beach, the 1959 original movie, and now we're going to go do the Australian, well, half Australian, half American television movie that was done in 2000. And we'll see how it compares. So we'll be back on the next episode to talk about that. But for now, thank you very much. And we shall see you on the next episode.
There's something very important I forgot to tell you.
What?
Don't cross the streams.